Hey, I want to welcome you to this very special edition of First Weekly. Today, as you well know, is Veterans Day, and I'm reminded of how grateful we should be as Americans for the men and women who have served our country so well and allowed us to be the free people that we are today. You know, in John chapter 15, verse 3, it says, "Greater love has no man than this, that he laid down his life for his friends." And today on the show, we're going to have 5 guys who haven't laid down their lives, but they certainly risked their lives so that people like you and I could live in a free country called America today. I want you to stick around, share this show with somebody else that you believe will be encouraged by it. It's going to be great conversation, and I believe you're going to be blessed. Welcome to this very special Veterans Day episode of First Weekly. Today, joining me on the stage, I have 5 heroes, 5 men who have served our country, veterans, and I cannot wait for you to hear their stories and hear about the impact that they have made representing men and women of their branches in the military all across the world as well. But these are people that have served our country. They have risked their lives so that you and I could live in a free country. And today, you're going to hear directly from them about their experience. I'm going to start over here with Tom. Tom, why don't you introduce us to who you are and where you served, when you served, and then we'll kind of go down the line.
I'm Tom Liner. I served in the U.S. Navy from 1989 to 2009. I served on minesweepers, fast frigate out of Newport, Rhode Island. Did most of the majority of my time in South Texas, in Ingleside, Texas. I achieved the rank of E7, Chief Petty Officer, and my job was engineman. I worked in the bows of the ship and pretty much stem to stern, every function on the ship was I had a hand in it.
My name is Dewey. I served in the United States Army from 1981 to 1984. Served Fort Hood, Texas, and in Camp Humphreys, South Korea was my last duty station. I'm a third generation soldier. Father served, grandfather served.
That's awesome, man. Third generation.
Third generation.
That's awesome. Colonel?
I'm Colonel Homer Davis, and I'm thankful to be here today with a clear mind and I can talk. And the reason I say that, last 6 months, one of my first sergeants and my command sergeant major lost both of them. And they were Chattanooga boys too. And so it was amazing for that. And I was able to go and be with them at that time. I've served a total of 40 years and 8 months. Went in the Marines in 1954, and I served 6 years, and then later went in the Army, went to OCS, and went to helicopter school, and just numerous of schools, and combining with 40 years and 8 months. And coming out as a full colonel, which is I'm very thankful for. There's two things in my life that stand out. That one, at age 50, I had 4 children. Sent 3 of them to college, but at age 50, I walked across stage at Cumberland University and got my BA degree in public administration. And then the other, I come from a family of military. My dad had twin brothers that arrived in Pearl Harbor on Friday the 5th. On Sunday the 7th, it was bombed. And then later on, I thought this is the way I go. That's the reason I went to the Marines at that time. But I also have had a son, Greg, that was a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, and made 2 trips to Iraq and 2 to Afghanistan. On his return, the last time, they found out he had colon cancer. Perfect picture of how a 53-year-old, we lost him to cancer. But the good news is that, good Lord, let Terry and I go to the Air Force Academy in 2014, the next year. And Greg being deceased, I got the honor of swearing him in.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he's now served 6 years. He's been several places, and he speaks Russian better than I speak English.
Wow.
But all through this time, and I guess my time ended here in the States at Nashville. I was the governor's representative. And when I say that, he commander of the troops, but he's state employee. And so therefore, each state has a person like myself that signs for federal equipment, federal money. And he is also his representative at the Pentagon. So they can't court-martial him, but if I do something wrong, then they court-martial me. So try to walk the straight and narrow that way.
That's great.
But it's a privilege to have the service.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Tom?
Well, I was in the United States Marine Corps from 1968 to 1972. In fall of 72, I started Southwestern Seminary, but I served in OCS in Quantico, flight school in Pensacola, and I was stationed at Marine Corps Air Station El Toro, then over at Vietnam in Da Nang, up at Inglewood-Cooney, and then back at El Toro before I went to seminary. So
That's awesome. And Jim?
Hi, Jim POLIER, and I joined the Marine Corps in 1957, served a couple of years there, and then I went active duty with the U.S. Air Force, and I was assigned to the hospital in Tachikawa, Japan.
That's awesome. Well, guys, I am honored to be on this stage with the 5 of you. Every single year on this day, a picture of my grandfather pops up on my screen, and I'm reminded as I look at a picture of him in his army, what do you call it? Army.
BDUs.
Yeah, whatever, outfit.
Dress,
It's an outfit, his uniform. I see that picture of him and I'm reminded of his service in World War II. My wife's grandfather also served in World War II. And so I'm just reminded every year of how blessed we are to live in a country where men and women have served this country so well. Many have laid down their own lives, and many have risked their lives, you guys included. And so I just wanted to take a few minutes today and hear part of your story. Like I said earlier, I just want to hear a snapshot of maybe an experience that you had, or as you think back, thinking about how grateful you are that God gave you the opportunity to serve your country in this way. And so, Dewey, I'm going to start with you. Think about your time serving our country. You know, there's guys who served in peace times, and then times of conflict. You served in one of the peace times.
Yes, sir.
So tell me about your experience.
Peacetime, I was an MP. MPs, during peacetime and wartime, one of our responsibilities is to take care of our troops. Typically take care of our post where people are stationed, as well as taking care of our troops. So when I was assigned in Korea, one of our responsibilities was to patrol the town and to patrol the post we were at. We were 12 miles from us on air base, so we swapped up with the air police occasionally. We went and helped them patrol their village, and they kept come help us patrol our village. One, to keep our guys out of trouble, because there's trouble there just like anywhere else. So that was one of the big things. Growing up as a kid, my father very much respected the flag. He had been an Army guy. And I respected the flag based on that. You know, the flag represents the United States of America. That's very important. But there came a time in my life that flag became one of my responsibilities one day. And from that day forward, I looked at it and I understood why my dad looked at the flag the way he did. So on a cold morning in South Korea at Camp Humphreys, I had the MP duty of hoisting the United States flag. We did that every morning. Prior to Reveille. So we would get there, crew of 4 people, 2 guys would hoist the American flag up, 2 guys would hoist the post flag. And that was a very unique thing that had to happen on every military post every day. That meant we owned that spot of ground. Very important. Just like what you see in Iwo Jima, that flag, the American flag going in those rocks that day means we've taken this is our land. We've taken that post. So peacetime, you know, you weren't sticking a flag up on a hill, but we were sitting in our Jeeps. It was 22 degrees. Snow was blowing sideways. I had a young private with me in my Jeep, and he looked at me and said, "Do we really have to do this?" And that day, I had to stand there and say, "We do," because this is what tells that we own this spot of ground right here. And we have to put this up. So that morning, to get out there in 22-degree weather with snow blowing sideways and hoisting that flag on foreign soil became a very different day for me in the United States flag. I already thought it was very unique. I honored it. I saluted it. But to have the responsibility of putting that flag up and to stand there, because that's what we stand for, is that flag and our freedom, was a very unique and will always be embedded in my mind, as well as my family's. My kids know that story, and my grandkids know the story. So it's very unique. When you have a soldier laying in his casket before burial, that flag drapes that casket. So it's a very unique piece of our history that we have to represent. And I had the opportunity to hoist that flag more than once, but that one day it became my responsibility to ensure we got it up on time. And it's a very minute story in other people's minds, but in my mind, it's a day that really signified I have this responsibility.
Wow. What a privilege, man.
Yes, very much.
Yes. You're with the Army.
Yes.
And what is this helmet in your lap?
This is my MP helmet, so that's what I wore to work every day. So all of our MPs carried that thing around with them, and you wore this when you got out of your Jeep and you're on patrol. That way, when you walked into a bar, or you walked into a friendly spot on post, or you were standing at the gate, you were very well represented before anybody got to you. So they knew exactly who you were when you showed up, and I brought that back with me. It has my name on the back. A Katyusha, which is a Korean augmentation to the United States Army, a Katyusha soldier, hand wrote my name on the back. TJ, there was a law enforcement show called TJ Hooker back in the day. He called me TJ Hooker. So he put TJ Woody on there, and then that's the Korean symbol we put on the back. So
that's pretty
a
cool.
very unique representative of my time.
That's pretty awesome. Tom, you were with the Navy, right?
Yes.
Let me ask you, is the Navy or the Army stronger?
Always Navy. Always.
That was a
Go
setup.
Navy, beat Army.
Hey,
Always.
I just,
We'll let him take that.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if there's any
We'll let him
competition,
take
any friendly competition.
There's always
between Navy or
competition
Army.
between, and the Air Force and the Marine Corps, there's always
Oh,
friendly
Of course,
competition.
but we've got great
Brothers.
representation
That's
on the
correct.
stage today. Tom, why don't you tell us about your experience?
I had been selected to augment the Army. The Army was rotating back and forth to Afghanistan, and they were having back-to-back tours. So they started bringing in the other services to try to take some places of the senior NCOs and give them more time to recoup and regroup before they went back. And we had trained in Fort Riley, Kansas, gone through all, a lot of things that I wasn't used to in the Navy. We were very protected on the ship, and a lot of things really didn't make sense till I got over there in Bagram. I arrived, of course, time zones different, a whole different look, a different feel, an actual base with Army, Navy, Air Force. Everybody's on it, Joint Command. But the first day I got there, they called over the loudspeaker on the base, and everybody manned the streets, and we didn't know why. And the caskets came by with the flag, and it got real fast. I had just got in theater. You see the ticker tape, on the news, an attack, 3 soldiers die, 3 airmen die, and people just go on to the next, story. But standing there and watching, actually seeing those caskets go by and seeing and feeling the loss and the hurt and the sacrifice, and it got real quick. And a lot of people, including myself, who had just got there, and you could tell we were new. We didn't blend in. We didn't fit in. We were fresh meat. And it really, that vision, or that being there watching that go by, I'll never forget it. When I see a coffin that's draped, I always immediately flash right back to that sidewalk where I stood and rendered honors as those were passed by, and say a prayer, not only for them, obviously, but for their family and their loved ones who, their sacrifice, Gold Star families that people, try to get to know one, try to come alongside one and learn what it's like to give the ultimate sacrifice, and to be a family member that's left behind after that sacrifice. My grandfather served. He died overseas, and it's really hard for my grandmother to talk about it, but I try on weekends and times like this. Tell me a story about Grandpa. Tell me about him. I never got to meet him, never got to know him, but just tell me something about him that I don't know. And she doesn't say much, but she'll give me a little insight onto his personality and my namesake. And I just like to know who he is. I'll see him again someday, but it'd be nice to know who he was when he served.
Oh, wow. Man, I tell you what, it's just amazing to hear really the emotion
Yeah.
of even reliving some of those moments, because you understand the significance of them. Like what you said about the ticker, you're exactly right. When you don't know the names and you haven't seen the faces and you haven't lived in that moment, it's hard to really understand the magnitude of the moment. But you guys have, and that's why I appreciate you being here and sharing part of your story. Colonel, you could tell stories for the next 5 hours because you've had 40 years and 8 months of serving time. And man, to be a full colonel, that's a huge accomplishment. Wouldn't you guys say it's a big accomplishment?
And a lot of responsibility.
That is a huge accomplishment. And you're right, a lot of responsibility. But if you were to think about some of the highlights, or maybe a moment that you will never forget, maybe a moment that you believe, is a highlight and an opportunity God gave you to serve our country and to serve it well, what would that moment be in your life and your experience?
I guess when I was in a battalion, I was a captain, administrative officer. And this battalion commander, who was a lieutenant colonel, would get right in my nose and chew me out. and I hadn't done it.
That was your favorite memory? You getting chewed out?
Well, I'm gonna tell you the memory. He would chew me out. I knew I hadn't done anything, but I caught him in his office by himself one day. I said, "How come you so obnoxious?" Knew that he'd probably knock me down, you know. He pointed right in my chest and he said, "Because I don't want you to say that I never did tell you. Because someday you'll have my job." And I've never forgot this.
That's good.
Never forgot. And those so many things that I give God the glory. Because he's always take care of me. Good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah.
Never forgot that.
That's good.
And one of the things that I served in different assignments, all to create and move me on up in the ranks. And one of them was that after I was field artillery branch, but I went to military intelligence school. And that gave me the knowledge after I retired to do our security plan and our evacuation plan for the church. Just so thankful that I could pass on to them.
Yeah. Now, you served during peace times, but you also served through some conflict times as well, correct?
Yes, but I was one of the fortunate guys, and I didn't have to go to Vietnam. You know. After they found out my background, then they sent me to Germany several times. We were over there, and we were up around Bad Hersfeld, which is on the Russian border. And believe me, things get a little touchy.
I believe it. Well, grateful for you, man.
Thank you, sir.
Honored to be sitting next to you today.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Tom, we've already heard part of your story on a recent episode, but I want to relive part of that because you had quite the adventure with flying planes and serving our country. Why don't you give us a snapshot of what that looked like and maybe a highlight?
Well, let me tell you how the Lord looked after me. My first day in the Marine Corps was rather rough, and I went to sleep that night and said, "Lord, if you get me through these next 4 years, I'm going to serve you the rest of my life." And I'd already told him I would, but I made it sure. And I remember the first day I walked in to get my assignment in Vietnam, and I thought I'd be like my older brother who flew in the Navy, just flying missions every day. And they asked me, "What was your major in college?" And I said, "Mathematics." He says, "I've got just the job for you. I want you to be custodian of the recreation fund." So my job was to fly to Hong Kong every other week and buy gear for the troops. And then about once a week, I'd go down to the squadron and fly a mission. But I always thought that the Lord was kind of looking after me to take care of me because he wanted me to be a music ministry when I got out.
That's amazing. That's so cool. I know Tom's been serving the Lord ever since.
Yep.
You made a promise to the Lord, said, if you get me through these 4 years, I'll give you the rest of my years. And you've done exactly that, man. We're grateful. What a blessing to know you, my friend. Jim, last but not least, why don't you share a part of your story with us today?
All right. Well, I served in peacetime also. Was assigned to the hospital in Tachikawa, Japan. And in 1960, I flew down to Okinawa to see my brother, who was a 30-year Army man in Okinawa. As soon as we landed, we were put on alert for something, confined to quarters for something called the Laos, Cambodia incident, which was the beginning of Vietnam War. And after a week, we were released and I flew back. And then I played football for the Air Force base there in Tachikawa. We were Armed Forces champions. We wore out the Army, we wore out the Navy, we wore out some of the Marine Corps in the process. We were undefeated Armed Forces champions in 1960. We also played Japanese universities. So we took the American flag, we played on television when we were playing Japanese universities.
Wow.
In the Olympic Stadium. And so we carried the American flag across the whole country of Japan by doing that. And it was an honor to do that.
That is awesome.
To be an American and to take that flag there. So
in the Olympic Stadium.
in the Olympic Stadium.
That's cool.
Wow.
That was cool, yes. So
So I have 3 brothers and 3 nephews that all served, and a son that all served in the military. And my nephew is still laying in the jungles in Vietnam, David Lovegren, and my son was a Green Beret Special Forces. He died in Africa. So freedom isn't free for any of us. And it's an honor for all of them to have done that.
That's awesome, man. Well, here's the thing. There are millions of veterans that have served our country. And I just wonder, who is the one veteran today that you want to honor? Who is the one veteran that pops into your mind that you are extra grateful for today? Jim, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I'm grateful. The one is my son, who gave his life, and my nephew, who gave their life for this country.
That's awesome. How about you?
My older brother, Jim WICKES, who was killed flying in a Navy plane and is buried in Arlington Cemetery.
Wow. How about you, Colonel?
I'd have to say a movie star, Audie Murphy, and the reason why, Audie, he had some business relations here in Chattanooga, and he flew in here and get with the lawyers, and then they flew on to the Carolinas. They were going to purchase some property or something. That plane went down and he was killed. But Audie Murphy, a lot of people don't know it, but he had every medal that the military issued in World War II, to include naturally the Medal of Honor. So it's had a lot of respect for him.
Yeah.
He has a good story to read.
That's incredible. That's awesome. Dewey?
Can I talk about 2?
Please do.
Sergeant Major Paul Huff, a Cleveland man. You know, when you drive down that street, there's a lot of people who have no idea about what that's about. A Medal of Honor winner from Cleveland, Tennessee. So his story's in the 5 Points Museum. So I would love to honor him and his family. When you are new in the military, like Tom mentioned, getting to theater, when I showed up in theater in Korea, I threw my bag down in front of the orderly room. I was ushered to the mess hall when I first got there, and had a staff sergeant that took me in and introduced me to a guy named Alvin Santiago. Alvin was a Puerto Rican guy from Chicago, Illinois. He immediately became my battle buddy, and I still talk to him. I talked to him yesterday, so I talk to him a lot. But he's a veteran I'd really love to honor today. He made things easier for me when I got in country. Showed me how to stay out of trouble and what we needed to do to keep everybody else out of trouble. So it's a very unique, and that's a lifetime bond between me and him. But I definitely remember, with the community, remember Paul Huff and his family. Because he served in Germany, and that story is very unique. A lot of pictures of him coming home to this town, and this town having a celebration and wrapping their arms around him. And people who drive down that road have no idea what that street represents.
Man, that's awesome. Thanks, man. Tom?
I had a senior chief, Douglas Furr, and he, funny name now that I think about it. I never really called him by his first name. It's just Senior Chief Furr. But when I first went in, I made my first command, I made some serious missteps, not knowing I'd got to the ship. I'd got hurt right when I got to the ship, and I really wasn't sure where I was supposed to be and what I was supposed to do. The ship got underway for some maneuvers, and they left me behind. I didn't understand that I needed to stay in Newport, and they said I had a doctor's appointment the next Friday, so I called home and said, hey, maybe I can come home. And so I left, and I didn't know who I was supposed to check in with or where I was supposed to be. And I came home to Chickamauga, and my grandmother happened to be visiting, and she said, a Senior Chief Furr called and said, you need to call the ship. And I was like, I'm in trouble. And he's like, where are you? Why are you at home? Why aren't you at the base? And I was like, I didn't know where to go, so I just came home. He said, you need to get back as quickly as you can. And we bought a really, really expensive plane ticket and got me back. And he could have made a real example out of me and he was hard on me, and we had a one-way conversation with him, and it never happened again. But he cut me some slack when he could have really stood me in front of the department and made a real good example. So, and then of course from then on, I was like, when somebody does something so stupid, just give them some slack, try to mold them. And from then on, he kind of took me under his wing, and he rode me pretty hard, but my career could have gone a very, very different way from that moment on, and he actually got me back on the right path. And I would say I wouldn't have made the rank I made without his mentorship.
He showed you some serious grace.
Oh,
man.
he did. I missed ship's movement. I was unauthorized absence. I was not even in the state, in the county, or the zip.
So did you make it to the ship?
Yeah, I made it to the ship once it got back, and it was.
That's really bad.
It was interesting.
One of the things I think we need to honor is we have these warriors coming back from Afghanistan, Vietnam. They got legs blown off, arms blown off, they're burned, and they're trying to make do, plus all of the carnage that they saw, the buddies they saw blown apart. They're trying to deal with that. But I also think we need to recognize and honor the wives that are standing by these guys. When I see him, and I see in a wheelchair, he's got both legs missing and one arm, and I'm going, and his wife is standing by him, and he's had children. I think that's
Caregiver.
you really have to honor that.
Yeah, man, no doubt. No doubt.
Yesterday, we posted flags to Veteran Cemetery on Sunday, and we posted a second flag for the family of that veteran. So it was a very unique thing. We have to honor that family.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, man, what a great time to do that today.
Absolutely.
Today is a day that we honor veterans. And I'm so glad we took the time for you guys to just honor the veteran that popped in your mind, because what a special thing to know how, or to see how veterans are honoring veterans. And, some of you guys are multi-generational in your families of serving our country. And I'm just grateful, man. John 15:3, what does it say? It says, greater love has no man than this, than to lay down his life for his friends. And yet we have so many men and women who have served this country, have risked their lives, have given their lives so that you and I can be free today to watch this program. And it just, what it reminds me of? It reminds me that freedom isn't free. And this moment in time cost a lot. And so let's not waste it. Let's remember why God has us here. Let's remember that God's given us this moment on purpose, and he expects us to maximize this moment for the glory of God. Don't waste today, but be grateful. Find a veteran, give them a hug. If you can't hug them because of the COVID, send them a note, send them a text, but let them know how much you appreciate them and their service, because guess what? We wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for them. Guys, thank you so much for taking the time today. Thank you for blessing us with your story and your presence. And thank you most of all for your service. God bless you guys. God bless you guys. And have a great day.
You meet me on the mountain top. You see me in the valley low. There is no home without you here. And I find you in the crowded thoughts. You quiet all the question marks. There is no space your love won't fill. I'll trade all my fear for peace of mind. All my heaviness for burden.
God's word today in Psalm 34. It says, "Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man who takes refuge in him. Oh, fear the Lord, you his saints, for those who fear him have no lack." May we rest in God's goodness today, whether we find ourselves on the mountain or in the valley or in the desert, resting in his goodness, trusting in his hand and his providence, that he's working all things together for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. That our song would be his goodness, and we'd rest in his hand and in his plan.